Everyone.
Hi, thank you for joining us.
We're here to talk about climate and culture today.
My name is Brooke Carroll. I am a consultant and coach with AC Strategies. I have worked in schools my whole career, and I've worked in public schools and private schools, charter schools. I've worked with Job Corps, so older learners, so a whole range of things.
And my name is Jen Court, and I am a consultant working with schools around the country, primarily on equity, diversity, inclusion, and justice. And I have been an assistant head of a lower school, middle school head, senior administrator in an upper school, counselor all over the place. We've been in schools for a long time.
And one of the things and Jen and I do our own work. We have our own businesses, but we do a lot of work together. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is that every single piece of the work that we do, I do a lot of work with schools around strategic planning, and I do leadership coaching, and all of the work that we do is impacted by the culture and the climate in the school. And there's a lot of discussion about culture and some about climate and a little bit about what the difference is, but not so much really specific about what do you do. So if you understand the culture, that's great, but what do you do if it's not working for you and you want to shift it? And so that's the work that Jen and I are doing. So we thought we'd share some of that with you.
So we're going to share some ideas for how you can take about and working on and to affect change by understanding what it is that you need to do to learn more and to get everyone else on board. Stop that. And we're trying to get those slides.
There you go.
Why don't you go ahead and start while I find this for us?
So first of all is the difference between culture and climate. And culture really is about the traditions and behaviors that are seen with the people in your organization. And so this is how your values are being lived out and how people are behaving in your organization. The climate is more about how people feel and their perceptions and the way that they think about the interactions in your organization. And so, of course, climate impacts culture because the way you think and the way you believe and the way you feel really impacts the way you behave. But they really are two different things, and you kind of come at them in two different ways.
So while we're thinking about culture, and if you have any suggestions for how to get those lines to come up, I am having a hard time doing so. And, oh, fabulous.
And then we go to slide share. Try this way. Why doesn't it show?
We're learning as we go along, which is part of the way, one of the things that we have to do to be thinking about culture and climate in the first place. And we will make sure that these slides are available in the notes that go with this video. See, I just close it out. So when we're thinking about culture, we look at all the different people who are involved and the roles that they're involved in. There is, do you want to talk some about the leadership?
So the leader of the organization in a school, it's the principal or the head of school, executive director, whatever you call that person. That top person has the most impact on the culture. And their behavior and the way that they interact and the way that they present and the way that they lead really impacts the way people think about and feel about, or the climate of that organization. That in turn is going to impact the way that they behave and the norms that are developed, which then becomes the culture. But then that culture, the way the norms are and the way people behave, in turn impacts the leader as well. So the way that the constituents in an organization behave, that's going to impact the leader's behavior too. So there's kind of this circular image that you can have about leader behavior and then follower behavior.
And one of the really cool things about that is that means in order to shift your culture, you can have an intervention at any point. If you get your students to be thinking about things differently, or the parents or teachers or whomever, you can have an impact on the culture. The key, though, is to be really intentional about the shifts that you're trying to make, because culture is created intentionally or unintentionally, just like community norms are created whether we intend to or not. So being intentional about it can really affect change in the way that we would like it to be affected.
And I think sometimes people feel like, well, I don't like this culture here, and it's people behave in poor ways, or there's a lot of negativity. But what can I do? I'm just a member here, and I think that what we see is that you can have an impact, and that you can change your behavior, and that kind of thing, and that can actually then impact the leaders as well. Certainly, if you're a leader, you have an opportunity to have a lot of impact.
So then we need to think about the constituent groups. We have the people in the leadership role, which could be the principal or department head, but it could also be those people who have a lot of power at the school in different ways. So they have an influence on the faculty and staff, and the faculty and staff have an influence on the students. Within both the faculty and the student groups, there are those who are kind of in the power roles, those who are kind of in the follower roles, and everyone in the middle. And it's important to think about them as groups within groups, because the groups that you can have the biggest changes with are those in the middle and those who are in the follower end. You want to get the people in the power positions to be on board with you, but you can affect change without having them on board as long as you get the other groups involved. Parents are part of our community always, and they are influenced by leader behavior. They also have a big influence on leader behavior as they do on students. So thinking about all of these groups as gears working within each other makes it so that we could stop any of the gears from moving and have them move in a different direction by working together on these things.
So when we think about climate, and what those ways that we can impact climate, what goes into climate, the different factors of climate. And there's several. And this is a way that you can think about improving climate and improving culture. But here's some of the major impacts on climate. One is agency, and that is the sense of, do I have an impact? Do I have can I make a difference here? Do I have, I'm trying to find another way to say that.
Do I have control?
Do I have control? Sure. The next one is relationships, and this is a big one, and this is about trust and respect and communication and how we interact within those relationships within an organization. The next one is meaningful work. Does it matter what I'm doing here? Do I make an impact in a way that's meaningful to me? The next one is achievement and recognition. So do I know how to achieve? Do I know how to move forward in this organization? Do I know how to meet expectations? And then do I get recognition for meeting expectations? And then the last one is accountability. Am I held accountable in a way that's meaningful and fair and consistent? And are other people, including the people above me, is everyone being held accountable in ways that are fair and meaningful and consistent? And so when you look at those different factors, each one of them has the ability to make you feel good about where you work or make you feel bad about where you work. And so that's what goes into the climate of a school.
So then when we're trying to think about how we affect change in these areas, there are many pieces that we can have a big impact on, but one of them that I want to spend a little bit more time on is values. Over and over again, the schools that we work with, we've shared with each other having a similar experience where we ask a school what their values are, and often people can't tell us, or they list the mission statement, or they give us tons and tons of words that don't mean much of anything to anyone. And they're different by constituent group. So students might say the school values respect, but teachers may say the school values the whole child. So finding words that you're using that apply to your school is really important. If you're doing a values clarification for school, an activity you could do is to have everyone list off all the things that they believe the school values, come to the ones that have the most in common with each other, and then make sure you have definitions of them. And you should find that you have very few values. The values are then the guiding principle for everything. If you have a tradition that that does not fit with the school's values, it's a tradition that should be modified or eliminated. Similarly, if you want to start a new program and you want it to have sustainability, it needs to be embedded in and connected to the values of the school. So that's key. Another one is to measure the perceptions and the beliefs. Gathering the data. Gathering the data can really inform everything, and it makes it so that it's not just your opinion, but it's rather what the community is saying. Examine the behaviors and norms. Community norms are created always. It's just whether or not they're created intentionally that will help to affect the culture and climate at your school. Ensure that your expectations, policies, and procedures are clear, are understood, and are in alignment with your values. Respond to specific concerns regarding agency, trust, productive communication, meaningful work, and accountability, achievement, and recognition that Brooke had listed before. You can almost use that list, which again, we will have in the notes for you, as a way to assess your school's climate and culture. If any one of those answers is no for you, group, then that becomes the area for you to focus on and the place that you want to try to put your energy so that you can affect change.
So just kind of to sum that up and reiterate, or sum that up really, because what we wanted to talk about is how do you impact culture and climate. And so the first place, number one, is to start with your values. Are your values clear? And if, as you all, as teachers or administrators, think about your school, if you say to yourself, the values I don't know what the values of my school are, that's a place to start. And you can start asking people, ask your administrators, what are our values? What do we stand for? Or ask the people in your team, ask the, in your department or whatever, or even in your class, do some values clarification in your class. So there's ways that you can impact even your small culture, classroom, department, division, that kind of thing. And so start with the values and then go through that list of climate and really see where people are not in alignment and where there is confusion or disgruntlement or things like that. And one of the things that Jen and I have been working on is a way to make that interactive. Because when we look out in the world of writing and literature and educational resources and things like that, there's not really a good measurement of culture and climate. There's surveys that some are horrendously long and convoluted
and not applicable to schools.
Right, and repetitious. Even the ones that say they're to schools are not necessarily. So we're developing a way that's really interactive and actually kind of fun, so that you can get to what is it that's meaningful here, and where do we need to shift? Because maybe it's a matter of clarity around your policies and procedures, or how you recognize achievement, or maybe it's a clarity around some other aspect. But you won't know until you dive into it, because, as Jen said, you have your own perspective about the climate, but that doesn't mean that it's the same with everyone else.
So if you follow these things, if you clarify your values, you know the people you want to intervene with, you know the areas that your school is struggling with in terms of those 6 categories, and you work on those intentionally, then you will find, we believe, and we've seen many times over, it far easier to shift the culture in your school, which supports everyone in the school. So thank you very much for joining us. To find out more about my work, I'm at www.jencort.com.
And I'm at www.acies, Strategies, STRATEGIES, strategies.com. Thanks so much.